Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over to California once again. We're going to visit a little town called Paso, Robles, which is to the north of Los Angeles and just a little bit to the north of San Luis Obispo, if you're wondering. But these guys are actually one of the most decorated Californian breweries, which really is no mean feat. So we're going to go to Firestone Walker Brewing Company and have a taste of their Double Jack, which is a double American India Pale Ale. So we know what to expect from this guy. Really awesome fruit flavours with a really nice big caramel boozy malt base on it. So really looking forward to trying this one. And I'm excited to visit Firestone Walker for this review because it's quite hard to get their bottles over here in Scotland. But as I say, one of the most decorated breweries. So fingers crossed I can get my hands on some more of these bottles to review for you in the fairly near future. But anyway, as always with my beer reviews, I'll take you through a very brief history of the company. These guys also have a really interesting fermentation system, so I will tell you a little bit about that as well. But if you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. The brewery website's in the description for you below, along with a link to my other reviews that, like I say, hopefully I can add to in the fairly near future. So anyway, to tell you about Firestone Walker. Firestone Walker was founded in 1996 and it's based primarily in Paso Robles in California, but they also have a secondary base in Bulletin as well. But the company is owned by two brothers-in-law, and the first one is Adam Firestone, who is the son of Brooks Firestone, who is quite a well-known politician over there. He was involved in the Californian government for quite a period of time, and also by David Walker, who had studied brewing at the University of California at Davis, apparently quite a famous brewing school these days. But in the early days they expanded their infrastructure through the purchase of the SLO brewery or Slow Brewery in Paso Robles in California, and they also brewed nectar ales for a while after they bought this company in 2005, but they later sold it to Total Beverage Solutions in 2012, and this company then reverted to the original name of Humboldt Brewing Company for the nectar ales. And apparently these beers are very nice, so hopefully I can get a hold of those at some point and review them for you as well. I always love reviewing Californian beer. But that's your very brief history of the company. But as I say, one of the interesting points about this brewery is the actual fermentation system. So apparently the oaky taste in the beer that you had during the early days was due to the use of oaken casks for the fermentation process, and they continue to use a Burton Union fermentation system where they use oak barrels, and they're actually one of only two breweries in the world to do this. And I tried to find out who the other one was. My thought was that it would have been Innocent Gun in Scotland, but I think they just mature their beers in oak barrels and things, so I'm not sure who the other one is. But just to explain that for you, the Burton Union system was developed in the 1830s, and it's basically a series of oak casks connected to a common trough, and it's connected by a series of pipes, and it basically allows the yeast foam to be expelled without leaving huge amounts of headroom in the casks. And it also has a system to separate expelled beer from this foam and then return it into the casks, and it's considered by many homebrewers to be quite an advanced technique to learn, so it's quite a popular thing for homebrewers who really like to try and show off with their skills and stuff. So it's a very interesting system, and from what I hear, I have heard that about Firestone Walker. You get a nice kind of oaky, vanilla-y flavour in a lot of their beers, but we'll soon find out with the tasting. But anyway, that's all your kind of history and background on the brewery just now. Just to tell you about a few of the other beers that these guys do, they've got a few different series. The main ones that I can figure out so far are the Lion and the Bear series. In this one you get a double barrel ale, a Pale 31, Union Jack, Pivo, and also the Easy Jack. They've also got their seasonal range, which is the Velvet Martin and the Oktoberfest, and this guy is a member of the Proprietor's Reserve range. So in this one you get the Opal, the Double Jack, this guy here, and also the Wookie Jack as well. And they also have Proprietor's Vintage range, Barrel Works, which is their experimental one, and they also have Collaboratives as well, which is where they collaborate with other breweries obviously. So that's all I'm really going to tell you about the brewery just now. To tell you about this beer itself, this guy is a 9.5% American double IPA. It's got a malt base of 2-row Munich, Simpsons Light and Crystal malts, and it's hopped with Warrior and Columbus for the original bittering, Cascade and Centennial in the late kettle boil, and then it's dry hopped with Amarillo, Cascade, Centennial and Simcoe hops. So for the impression I get of this brewery is that they are very, very hop forward. But just before we open it up, let me bring it up and you can have a little look at the artwork on this one. It's actually quite nicely done. It's almost like a kind of old English thing, if you like, or an old American thing. I think it's a kind of colonial style artwork. But there you can see on the top Firestone Walker, although it does only say Firestone here. I thought it would be nice if it said Firestone and then Walker down this side, but it's presented quite nicely. I like the sort of kind of classical old style look they've gone for, but you can see the bear is on the top of this bottle, is on the bottle cap there, so I'll definitely be keeping that. I'll see if I can steam the label off of this as well, but without further ado, let's get this guy open and we'll get on with the tasting. So as I say, 9.4% American double IPA. So as you can see, a nice smoky opening there. Just put that back. But yeah, you can really smell the tropical fruits and some oranges off this, and that's without paying too much attention to it, by the way. I always like to comment on that in my beer reviews. But as you can see, it's poured a really nice bright orangey amber colour, and you've got just a half finger of a nice frothy white head on it there, and that's going to just, I think that's going to just fade away and be a very thin foamy layer. I maybe should have poured it a bit more aggressively, but hi ho, here we go. So as you can see, it's actually a really nice bright orange amber. If I put my fingers behind it, you can see it is kind of semi-hazy. You can see through it, through it a little bit. I can see to the other side of the glass and just a little bit through there, but it looks really nice. There's a little bit of carbonation sticking to the side of the glass, some big bubbles, but a lot of small bubbles just going towards the bottom of the head, but it looks a really, really beautiful beer actually. So without further ado, let's have a look at the aroma here. So as you would expect from the style, a lot of hoppy character coming off of this one. So you've got a nice big tropical fruit note in this. You're getting some nice grapefruit, that's the first thing I'm noticing. And that's from the Cascade and Warrior hop. As I said, there's quite a lot of different hops in this, so I had a wee look up to see what kind of things you could expect from each of them, what type of fruits, because I knew this would be a huge fruity beer. But yeah, you've got big tropical fruit notes, some grapefruit, which as I say is from the Cascade and the Warrior. We've also got pineapple as well, which I think it comes from the Warrior too. The Warrior is more of a pineapple-y hop than a grapefruit one. And there's a little bit of passion fruit in there too, I think, which tends to be a property of the Simcoe hop. And you've got orange, definite orange in there. You can really pick up just a little bit of juiciness, the sweet juiciness, and that's the Amarillo hop coming out. And there's a definite floral and aromatic presence, and that's the property of quite a few hops that are in this beer. The Cascade, the Amarillo, and I think the Centennial as well, you'll get a little bit. And you can pick up just a little teeny bit of earthiness out of it. Just a very, very small bit, but that's often a good way to link the caramel flavours to the hops, with just a little teeny bit of earthy character, and that's usually the Columbus that helps bring that out a wee bit. But it's really, there's a lot of things going on in this one. It's very hoppy aroma, and there's a definite pine resin in there too, which that tends to be, I think it's the Simcoe you get a lot of pine resin from, and the Warrior you will get a little bit of it too. Warrior sounds like an interesting hop. I would love to try a single hop IPA from this one, but underneath it all you can really pick up a little bit of a nice big malty sweetness in there. A lot of caramel, maybe a bit of a kind of cereally biscuit coming out as well, but there's a definite breadiness in there, and the breadiness that you pick up is from the Munich malt. Crystal you think you tend to get a little bit of a caramelly bit from, but the big breadiness that's lying under this beer, that's definitely Munich malt, and having lived in Germany, I'm very used to that kind of malt, so it's I can always pick that up when I smell it in beer. So as I say, you've got a whole host of things: grapefruit, pineapple, a little bit of passion fruit, some orangey notes, there's floral and aromatic notes, kind of piney resins too, and definitely just a little bit of earthy character in there too. So there's a whole host of things going on, and a nice big bready and caramel malt. So give this beer a smell before you taste it. It's absolutely beautiful. So this is the 9.4% Proprietor's Reserve Range Double Jack from Firestone Walker in California, Slangia. Now that's really, really nice. Really beautiful flavour. A lot of things are blending together, but first impression I get of it is that it is actually really juicy. It's a lot. The malt is actually very prominent in comparison to the hops as well. I thought this was going to be a more hop forward double IPA with all the hops they've added to it, but there's a lot of nice malt sweetness in there too. Yeah. So I think there is a good nice malty sweetness in there. you've got a nice kind of bready malt that just blankets the tongue there. On top of that, there's a lot of kind of darker caramel sweetness in there. And there is a little bit of alcohol warmth to that too. You can just get a little bit of the boozy character going down the middle of the tongue there, but a nice bready blanket. And there is a little bit of slightly biscuity sweetness in there too, I want to say. But it is sort of really, really beautiful beer. I can see why it's rated so highly. It's got ratings of, I think, 90 on Beer Advocate, and Rate Beer it has something like 95 as well, so a very highly rated beer, and it is very decorated as well. It's won awards almost every year since they've done it. But yeah, a really nice big caramelly malt base on this one, and it just blankets the tongue. It's a nice big line of caramel down the middle and a big bready character over that. It's really beautifully done. At the back sides of the tongue as well, you're picking up just a little bit of earthy character in there, and just in front of that, that's I think where the kind of floral and aromatic-y flavours are coming out. So you're getting a nice, at the back sides of the tongue, you're getting this nice transition between the sort of caramel flavours and just a little teeny bit of earthy hop, and then the aromatic and slightly grassy, citrusy elements coming out of it there too. And the pine resin in this is definitely there. As you move into the aftertaste, you can just get that underlying of the nice kind of, not sourish, but the sort of very kind of resinous pine flavours in there. There's so much going on in this beer. It's beautifully done. As you progress through the flavour of this beer, you just get a little oily feel that moves towards the front of your tongue, and there's a lot of fruity flavour in there. You've got a nice grapefruit element in there that's just got that kind of sourness to it, but then on top of that you can pick up just a little bit of the pineapple and a little bit of the passion fruit. But I want to say that the grapefruity characters are more prominent in that, but it does have, you can really pick up the mixed elements to it there, and around the front edge of the tongue you're just getting that piney and sort of florally aromatic-y dryness right around the edge of the tongue. The fruity character comes out just kind of behind that, I think, and as I say, there's a nice mix of grapefruit in there, which I think is the most prominent one, and you've got some really cool sort of pineapple and slightly sharper passion fruit flavours in there too, which is nice. You are getting a bit of a kind of sharper citrus as well, which is, you would normally get that from the kind of the Amarillo and the Centennial, and I think the Warrior as well. You get a little bit of a teeny lemony citrus in there as well, and that mixes in with the kind of floral and aromatic flavours. And pardon me, I want to say there's a bit of juicy orange in there too, and perhaps the fruit character that builds just behind the back of the middle of the tongue there. It is quite unusual. I've not had one that's had quite so much going on in it before, and I want to say that's a good mix of the grapefruit and the passion fruit and the pineapple, like I say, the tropical fruit flavours. But I also want to say there's a nice kind of juicy orange edge to that in there, so there's a really interesting blend of fruit flavours in there, and I'm quite good at that now, because I like to blend different fruit juices and get a real taste of what the different fruits taste like, and you can really taste that in there. It's almost just like you've made a fruit smoothie, if you like, just behind your tongue. But if you've just mashed up all these fruit and just made it into juice all together, that's the sort of thing that you're getting behind the edge of the tongue here. So there's a whole host of things going on in this beer. That the level of flavour in it is beautiful. So as I say, a nice bready blanket, some really good caramel, rich dark caramel flavours on top with a little bit of biscuity sweetness. Get some earthy character at the back sides of the tongue. Move forward a wee bit, you're starting to get the aromatic and floral elements to it there, and then the pine resin, the dry kind of resinous pine flavours are just going around the front edge of that tongue, and there is a bit of a sharper lemony feel in there. And as I say, just behind the front of the tongue you've got this really nice oily bubble that comes up, and that's got grapefruit, pineapple, passion fruit and some orange in there. It tastes just like a kind of homemade fruit juice really behind the very front of the tongue. So it's beautifully done. But it's there's so much going on in this beer. As I say, just think a little bit about the flavours you're getting out of this. In terms of the mouthfeel, I would say this one is probably mid to full bodied. I'm not quite sure. Yeah, probably very much pushing the kind of full-bodied sort of label, if you like. Carbonation in it is very smooth, but it's got a nice big oily, slightly syrupy mouthfeel to it, but there's a good bit of alcohol warmth in there, but that does help bring out a lot of the flavours. It helps bring out the caramel a little bit more. It's a nice big boozy caramel you're getting off of this. But there's a nice kind of dark, rich caramel sweetness on the middle of the tongue. As I say, you've got some nice bready character in there too. But in the aftertaste, you've got a good balance between that. You've got the nice dry, fruity characteristics. It's particularly the earthy and aromatic-y character and some of the pine resin that's lingering in this beer, and most likely more of the tropical fruits rather than the oranges, I think, coming out in the aftertaste. But it's got a really balanced aftertaste. It's not pushing too much to the malt or too much to the hops, so it's really beautifully done. There's not much more I can say about this beer other than that it's really beautiful, and I would happily have one or two of these in a session. If I was wanting to get a little bit of a buzz and have a beer that is beautifully flavoured, then this is definitely one you want to go for. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. It's been really cool to visit another very well known Californian brewery. As always, please let me know in the comments section your own thoughts on this beer below. I always like reading them. Hopefully I can review some more Firestone Walker beers for you, but as I say, they're quite difficult to get here in Scotland. If this beer is anything to go by, I'm sure the rest of the beers are awesome as well, so make sure you go and check out the brewery. And as always, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. I hope you've enjoyed this beer review, and I will catch you soon with my next one, and hopefully there'll be more Californian ones to come. Slàinte.